Tensions between two rival schools hit a new peak when Rintaro, a quiet and intimidatingly handsome student from the all-boys Chidori High, finds himself drawn to a girl from Kikyo Academy, the elite all-girls school next door. Rintaro, the strong silent type with serious main character energy, notices the neighboring school and starts feeling like there's a whole other world just beyond those curtains. Meanwhile, a minor street incident between students escalates into school drama. The boys from Kikyo come looking for Rintaro, who apparently helped someone. It turns out Rintaro witnessed a breakup the night before and seeing the guy devastated, offered him a comforting bro hug, though his intense aura made the poor guy bolt. Things settle down until a couple of Kikyo girls walk by and one drops a note. When Usami, Rintaro's friend, picks it up and calls it trash, the girl claps back with a brutal insult. The boys laugh it off, teasing Usami. Kikyo girls see the Chidori boys as wild cavemen crashing their royal court, and the feeling's mutual. Just when plans for karaoke are made, Rintaro gets called in to cover a shift, because even cool guys need to earn that paycheck. After school, he runs through the rain, straight to the bakery. Even though he's soaking wet, they still give him grief for being late. Classic. Rintaro tries to explain that the school's far and they won't even spot him for a ride. They tell him there's only one customer anyway, but they're short-staffed, so they really needed the help. The bakery is actually his family's business, so he has to pitch in sometimes. That's how they keep things running. Still, he's never told anyone at school. It's kind of his little secret, just between us. Rintaro goes to check who the customer is, and boom, it's her, the anime waifu in the flesh. She sees him, turns red, and literally chokes on her croissant. He rushes over with a glass of water because, you know, it would be really awkward if a customer had a very bad day right there in the shop. Then Rintaro realizes this girl isn't just hungry, she's side quest level hungry. She's already made her way through half the menu. Out of nowhere, she jumps up and bolts out of the store like she forgot she left the oven on. Yep, another one gone. Later that night, as he's closing up shop, Rintaro tells his sister what happened. She casually drops that the girl's name is Waguri, and she's actually a regular. Like regular enough to be on first name basis. She just hopes Rintaro didn't scare her off with his quiet main character energy. But if she comes back, Big Sis is confident he's got a shot, especially if he leads with the pastries. Rintaro genuinely feels bad for scaring the poor girl. But hey, it's not his fault for being unintentionally cool. He thinks about going to apologize, but then realizes that might come off a little too intense, like, "Hey, I found your IP address." Later that afternoon, he's chilling in his room reading a book. Fun fact, his house is literally above the family bakery. Suddenly, his sister bursts in like she's kicking down the door on a cop show. She yells, "Waguri came back and she's asking for you. Says she wants a rematch." Rintaro heads downstairs to check what's going on. They greet each other with the awkward energy of running into your ex at Target. And Waguri kinda stammers that she's here to treat him to a slice of cake. They sit down at a little table and yep, she really did buy him a slice. Which is kinda weird when you think about it. He's literally at home, eating food his own family makes. And yet she paid for it. But hey, it's the thought that counts. Trying to break the silence, Waguri apologizes for running out the other day. She says the cake is her way of making it up to him and insists he eat it before she gets tempted to claim it herself. It's obvious she's got her eyes on that dessert. Rintaro offers it to her instead and she says no, but only out of politeness. He barely insists and boom! She dives in with a smile like she just won the dessert lottery. As she devours it, she casually asks if he was surprised to see her going full sweet tooth mode. Rintaro says not really, like a gentleman, though his face says very much yes. Waguri explains that she was alone, it was raining, and she didn't want to wait until she got home to eat something sweet, as if she needed to justify going into a bakery. Please. Then she asks for his name. When Rintaro tells her, she mutters under her breath something like, "Finally got it." He hears her and asks what she said. She panics a little and plays it off, saying she'd seen him before. That's when Rintaro realizes if she already had her eye on him, then the first time she ran off, it wasn't random. So he asks why she bolted. Waguri, super shy now, full anime waifu mode, admits it's because no guy had ever looked at her like that before, and she kind of freaked out. That throws Rintaro off. Usually people find him a little intense or intimidating, but not nervous breakdown levels of flustered. And that's when it hits him. She's not like the others. And boom, romance officially unlocked. Buckle up, folks. Things are about to get adorably awkward. Rintaro starts getting that classic stage fright feeling. The vibe's getting too real and he blurts out something like, "Paw, well, it's getting late. Guests must be getting sleepy," which is his polite way of saying please leave before I completely melt down. Still, he's a gentleman and offers to walk Waguri to her stop. She agrees it's time to head out, but before she goes, she asks him to pack up a few pastries to go, plus one more for snacking on the way. He boxes everything up and walks her to the door, but she insists she's fine going alone. The station's nearby and it's not like there are random weirdos with grudges hiding in the shadows or anything. Before leaving, she pauses and tells him she didn't run away last time because she was scared, and asks him to believe her. Boom. Confidence level boosted. Is there anything this girl can't do? Rintaro heads back upstairs and collapses just inside his door, trying to process what just happened. The guy's got his fair share of emotional baggage. Back in the day, his classmates would roast him for everything. His intense stare, his spooky aura, the fact that his family runs a bakery. Like, sorry, his life is full of cupcakes? And maybe they just didn't like sweets. Or maybe they were just bitter, who knows. Anyway, all those years left their marks, but a single afternoon with Waguri felt like 2 years of therapy in fast forward. Just a reminder, folks, this is fiction. If you're going through stuff, talk to a professional, not your crush. Suddenly, BAM! The door swings open and practically knocks Rintaro into next week. But hey, that's what you get for sleeping right by the door. It's his sister. She holds up one of the pastries Waguri bought and says she found it tossed outside. Something's off. Turns out, 2 guys who seriously dislike Rintaro saw him with Waguri earlier and decided to follow her once she left the shop. They corner her in a quiet area and start saying all kinds of nonsense. Stuff like how she's cute and maybe she should hang out with them instead. Rintaro doesn't waste a second. He bolts out to find her. Luckily, these clowns are loud, so he tracks them down fast. When he gets there, the guys are grilling her. What were you doing with Rintaro? Are you two like a thing or what? She says no, but that just makes them talk more trash. They say Rintaro's weird, that he's got a shady rep, that he goes to some low-tier school where only half the students graduate, and not because of bad grades, but because the other half just kind of disappears from the attendance list. Rintaro's a little selfish and likes to keep the spotlight on himself, so instead of helping Waguri, who's probably super scared, he just stands there listening to what they're saying about him. The rumors sting because they're mostly not true. Well, except for the part about his school being a total mess. That one's legit, but Waguri isn't having any of it. She boldly tells those guys they shouldn't be so quick to judge people. She asks if they ever thought about talking to him before buying into those silly rumors, and promises that if they actually got to know him, they'd see he's a good dude. They say nah, they're not interested, and Waguri fires back that if that's the case, they should at least stop spreading those dumb rumors because it just makes them look desperate and ridiculous. That crosses a line, and since they're bullies, of course they decide to throw hands. Luckily, Rintaro finally snaps into hero mode. He steps in front of Waguri like a total boss, showing off his Superman without a cape vibes to protect her. He unleashes his full intimidating aura, and the bullies get scared out of their minds and take off running, even though he got hit in the back. For some reason, his forehead starts bleeding. Waguri freaks out and, channeling her inner childhood healer, starts rubbing his forehead with a classic feel better chant. Turns out when he got hit in the back, he bumped his head on the wall. Sounds a bit like a stretch, but hey, it's for the story. Rintaro apologizes, thinking it's his fault for letting Waguri get mixed up with him. She tells him she doesn't get why everyone's so scared of him when he's actually a pretty great guy, and thanks him for taking the hit for her. She walks him to the station and they say their goodbyes, but then Waguri stops him to say she's definitely coming back to the bakery for more pastries, and this time she wants him to eat one with her. Rintaro heads home while Waguri calls to say she's on her way. And that's when Rintaro's protector mode kicks in, and he starts thinking about how ripped he looked. It's a simple spell but a powerful one, my friend. The next morning, Rintaro drags himself into school, exhausted from staying up all night thinking about his waifu. He looks out the window and sees a curtain move. It opens, and there's Waguri. Is it fate or just the script? Rintaro freaks out and hides behind the curtain. He thought she was younger, maybe still in middle school, but nope, she's his age. That makes him really happy because dating someone younger would be weird. Plus, the girls at that other school are pretty high maintenance anyway. Usami shows up to school in full drama mode. Rintaro asks him what's up, and Usami says he's just done with the girls from Kikyo. On his way there, a bunch of them looked at him like he was some kind of walking red flag. He doesn't get why they hate him so much. It's not like he chose this school on purpose. Just then, Saku and Ayato roll in and casually remind him, well, yeah, if you're here, it's probably because you couldn't get into a better one. They admit the Kikyo girls look down on all of them. And if even Saku, the certified heartthrob of the squad, gets that treatment, the rest of them are doomed. Saku gets all philosophical and says their schools are so different that if by some wild twist of fate a student from each fell in love, it would be like Romeo and Juliet. Just, you know, with less swords and more cafeteria drama. Hypothetically, of course, that would never actually happen, right? They turn to Rintaro and ask why he's got a giant bump on his forehead. But Rintaro zoned out, deep in thought about his impossible love. They ask if he closed the classroom curtain earlier, and yep, he did. He hid behind it, totally forgot to open it again. Usami brushes it off like, whatever, I say forget the Kikyo girls. And Rintaro, totally giving himself away, snaps back, what did you say about my girl? Realizing he just confessed more than he meant to, he backtracks. I mean, I just closed the curtain because the sun was too bright. Then he opens it like, see, no big deal. Class starts, but Rintaro can't stop replaying that morning. He basically slammed the curtain in Waguri's face. Total knee-jerk move, but now he's convinced she'll think he's a jerk and never come back. Part of him thinks maybe that's for the best. But dang, with how many pastries she could eat, he just lost his best customer. After school, Usami invites him out, and since he doesn't have to help at the bakery, he agrees. They plan to hit karaoke and sing the manliest songs possible. That's right, we're talking power ballads and emotional synth pop. Total tough guy stuff, but just as they're about to leave, they notice a crowd forming at the school gates. Oof, hope nobody got run over, someone says. They push through to see what's going on. Turns out it's Waguri, just standing there waiting for someone. Rintaro freezes. He's trying to figure out what to do, but Usami, being Usami, shouts across the way. Hey, you're in our territory. Waguri calmly says she's waiting for someone. Usami, nosy as ever, asks, who? But before this turns into an awkward Q&A session, Rintaro swoops in and metaphorically tugs Usami back on his leash. He apologizes to Waguri. That's when Usami suddenly gets all mopey. He complains that he doesn't have a girlfriend waiting outside for him like some kind of rom-com lead. Not fair. Rintaro silently thanks the universe that his friend is a little clueless. Otherwise, things would have gotten real awkward. Then some Kikyo girls show up to rescue Waguri. They tell her she shouldn't be on this side of the fence or she might catch whatever it is they have. They throw a look of pure judgment at the guys and start walking her away. Usami tries to call one of them out for shoving him, but she just gives him the ugh treatment and says, "Don't touch me, peasant." The boys walk off grumbling about how those girls are seriously too much. And honestly, they kinda are. Meanwhile, Rintaro can't help but wonder, was she really waiting for me? Maybe she knows someone else at school? But what if it was actually him? Usami asks Rintaro what he thinks about everything, but she notices something off about his expression. His other friends pick up on it too. They say he looks kind of scary. Rintaro insists he's fine and says maybe he's just happy. Still, he sticks to his plan of it's better if I never see her again. They head to karaoke where Usami gives it her all, while Rintaro scrolls through the song list, trying to find the one that'll wow everyone. When the song ends, Saku asks if he's okay. He notices something's definitely off, especially since Rintaro showed up with a pretty solid bump on his forehead. The others agree he's been acting strange and tell him that if something's bothering him, they're there to listen and maybe roast him a little, but you know, with love. Rintaro wonders if he should tell them what happened the day before and how he feels about Waguri. He starts weighing the pros and cons, but just remembering the conversation from earlier, where someone said all the girls from that school were stuck up and should just walk off together into the sunset. Well, let's just say it didn't feel like the safest space for emotional vulnerability. So he keeps it to himself. He assures them he's fine and goes back to searching for the perfect song. His friends tell him that whenever he's ready to talk, they'll be there to listen. And mock him mercilessly, of course, but always in good fun. Since he still hasn't picked a song, Usami picks a real tough one for him. But Rintaro steps up and takes the mic like a champ. Before starting, he apologizes to Saku for worrying him. Saku just shrugs and says, well, that's your problem. Then, to prove his point, he joins Rintaro on stage to help him with the song, because that's what friends do. Later that night, Rintaro gets home with a sore throat. Turns out belting out those power ballads without warming up first has consequences. Moral of the story, always warm up before trying to sing the king of ballads, folks. He notices the bakery is still open, even though it's way past closing time. Curious, he steps inside and finds Waguri waiting for him, like it's part of some secret movie ending. Just then, the woman who turns out not to be her sister but rather her mother shows up to scold him for not letting anyone know he'd be late. She says poor Waguri has been waiting for him all afternoon, then offers her the leftover cakes. Waguri politely declines, saying she's not the trash can, but the loud growl from her stomach says otherwise. Everyone bursts into laughter. Well, everyone except Waguri, who just wants to disappear from embarrassment. Rintaro, trying to lighten the mood, invites her to share one with him. They sit down at the table with their small piece of cake, and Waguri savors it with such joy it seems like she hasn't eaten in days. She asks if his friend is okay after the rough yank he got earlier. Rintaro says he's fine, he doesn't even feel it anymore, and then asks her what she was doing at his school. Waguri replies with a, "What do you think?" She came to see him, of course, but she adds it was the first and last time after all the chaos that broke out. Rintaro tells her it was his fault. He didn't know how to react, and without thinking, he blurts out that seeing her made him happy. Rintaro realizes he totally blew it and quickly apologizes for being so blunt. He tries to brush it off, asking Waguri to just pretend nothing happened, but she's not having it. She says, nope, they shouldn't just ignore their feelings. Cue awkward silence. Rintaro, panicking a little, tries to save the moment with the only weapon he has left. You gonna finish that cake? she shoots back. Obviously. Rintaro admits he didn't think she'd ever come back to the shop, because of the whole she's from Kikyo and he's from Chidori thing. But Waguri says that actually it made her happy to find out he was from Chidori. Then she glances at the clock. It's getting late, and she says she should go. Translation: yeah, he definitely messed that up. He tries to stop her, but she gently cuts him off with, I thought that getting to know you meant actually getting to know you. Oof, that one hits deep. She walks off looking a little defeated, and Rintaro, he doesn't even think twice about letting her walk home alone that late. That is, until his mother appears like a sitcom character waiting for her turn. She sees his tragic face and knows immediately something happened. She drags him into the living room for a full debriefing. After hearing his side of the story, she gently taps him on the forehead as a sign of justice and tells him to go after Waguri because, as we saw last episode, letting a girl walk home alone at night is strictly prohibited. Rintaro still doesn't get the she wanted to get to know me better part, so his mother explains he's judging her by her school, just like people judge him. She points out that he's been focusing on the uniform, not the person. Meanwhile, Waguri knew exactly where she went to school, and that never changed his treatment of her. That finally clicks. Rintaro pauses dramatically and then slaps himself in the face like he's in a cheesy sports movie. Don't do that, kids. You're not intense. You just look like cavemen. Anyway, lesson learned. He's ready to fix things. The next morning, he arrives at her school super early, waiting for her at the gate like a man on a mission. When Waguri arrives, he apologizes for hurting her. She's confused, so she explains that she saw his sad face just before she left. Waguri curls up, hiding her face, and starts to cry. She's embarrassed that he saw her like that, but admits she was really sad. And worse, she thinks she caused him even more trouble. Rintaro shuts him up. He tells him he's the one who should apologize. Normally, he doesn't mind when people talk badly about the Kikyo girls. Yes, some of them are quite conceited, but when it comes to her, things change. He says he kept his distance because he was afraid he'd hurt her again, but now he wants to take it back. He apologizes for judging her by the school she goes to, instead of seeing her for who she really is. That brings a smile to Waguri's face. She accepts his apology, and with a soft laugh, they formally introduce themselves again as if to say, let's start over. Because when it comes to people, uniforms mean nothing. Taking advantage of the moment, Rintaro apologizes for shutting the curtain in her face, but Waguri tells him she didn't even notice. She just thought the sunlight was too strong. But it's early now, and the entire campus is practically a ghost town. So they each head to their classrooms but open the windows so they can see each other across the courtyard. Waguri gives a little jump of joy, and Rintaro, being the effortlessly cool type, waves at her from a distance. The classic stoic gesture of a leading man. Look at her, all smiles and brightness. This is what it's like when you fall for a guy who has no long-term plans, but somehow pulls it off with charm. It's May and the heat is really kicking in. Rintaro and Usami are melting like popsicles on asphalt, so they sneak into the teacher's lounge to crank up the AC. Boring classes aren't helping either, but then Usami remembers the upcoming sports tournament. That gives him a little spark of hope until the teacher drops the bomb. Neither of them can participate. Usami immediately jumps up like, oh, hold on, why just us? The teacher says that anyone who fails the next exam has to attend a remedial course instead of joining the tournament. But Usami is not giving up that easily. We haven't even taken the test yet. We could pass this time. The teacher raises an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. Usami then asks what the prize would be for all their hard work. The teacher thinks for a second and says, if you win the tournament, I'll treat you to ice cream. Kinda lame, right? But for Usami, it's all the motivation he needs. Back in class though, that motivation turns into sheer panic. He's shaking in his seat like a chihuahua in a snowstorm. Deep down, he knows the test is gonna be brutal. He turns to Saku and begs for help studying. Saku shuts him down immediately. He gave them an intensive study crash course last year and they still failed. Rintaro's worried too, but he hides it better. He asks Yorita for help, but Yorita admits he doesn't fully get the material either. Their best shot is still Saku. But yeah. So Usami, full of pride, tells Saku they don't need him anyway. He and Rintaro will pass the exam on their own. Just then, Rintaro gets a text from his mom reminding him it's discount day at the bakery and to invite Waguri. It's been a while since she came over. Makes sense. Cakes aren't cheap. But then he remembers, wait, he goes to a private school. He can afford cake. So he shoots Waguri a message. He waits the entire day for her to reply. And just when he's about to head out, she finally texts back. She says she's busy this month and maybe they can hang out another time. Ouch, Rintaro's a little crushed. After class they head to the library but not the school one. That place has no air conditioning. They go to the public library instead. Rintaro urges Usami to apologize and ask Saku for help, but Usami is determined to study on his own. They grab a table and start working through problems, or at least trying to. Working is kind of a strong word here. They're totally lost. Rintaro finally says, look, if you really want that ice cream, you're gonna have to make peace with Saku. Usami grumbles but agrees. He heads back to school to find the others so they can study together. Rintaro stays behind, and that's when he notices a couple of girls wandering around, looking for a place to sit. He tries to play the gentleman and silently gives up his seat at the table for the girls. As he's heading out, he hears a familiar voice. It's Waguri, helping a friend study. That's when he realizes why she's been so busy this month. She's prepping for exams, and since she goes to a super tough school, it's probably pretty intense. But when he sneaks a peek, she's actually just doodling in her notebook. So maybe it's not that serious. Waguri tells her friend that drawing helps her relax and that it's actually part of her study routine. Her friend buys it, mostly because Waguri's always top of her class. After hearing that, Rintaro sits down on a bench outside. The reality hits him hard. She's one of the smartest at this fancy school, and he's just barely scraping by at his average one. He flops onto the bench, totally defeated, kind of like a drunk guy passed out on a park bench. He's about ready to throw in the towel and accept failing another year when Waguri shows up and asks if he was napping. Rintaro sits up, and she says she caught him out of the corner of her eye and took a break to come say hi. He makes room on the bench. She sits down and apologizes for missing the big discount day. Rintaro shrugs it off, saying they have those sales every month or whenever there's leftover cake. Waguri says she hopes she can make it to the next one and promises to save up so she won't show up empty-handed. Rintaro is surprised she works, considering she's from a wealthy family. But Waguri explains that the only thing rich about her is her drive to succeed. She says she's on a scholarship at the private school, so she can't afford to slack off. Actually, she aims even higher, which is why she's always at the top of her class. Of course, it's taking a toll. She's been losing sleep studying, and sometimes in class she has to pinch herself just to stay awake. Well, that and because she says she kinda likes a little bit of pain. To her, this is a huge opportunity, so she feels like she has to work twice as hard. She even had to beg her dad to let her enroll, and she doesn't want to let him down. Rintaro realizes he's been judging Waguri without really knowing her. Prejudices can be brutal, so he asks her to help him study and tells her that if he flunks this exam, he's really in trouble. And this time, he's serious. He wants to pass. After hearing all the effort she's putting into improving herself, Rintaro feels a bit bad for wanting to give up so quickly just because things got tough. But then he realizes he'd only be adding more work to the poor girl's plate, though she quickly says yes and even offers him some of her snack. Waguri tells him she needs to get back to her friend and mentions she actually came with another girl who went to the store and hasn't come back yet. Right then, that other girl shows up. And well, even though it's best not to judge by appearances, she definitely gives off some serious bad vibes. Rintaro notices her hair is dyed silver and thinks, whoa, she's basically cosplaying. She spots the school uniform and realizes it's Chidori's, so she warns her not to hang around Waguri anymore. Waguri tries to clear things up with her friend Subaru, but things get tenser when Rentaro's buddies show up, and they know these girls usually mean trouble. They step up and ask what these girls want with their friend. Subaru tells Waguri, come on babe, don't hang out with this riffraff. Usami gets annoyed and recognizes Waguri as the girl who caused all the drama last time. When Usami steps up with a challenging vibe, both Subaru and Rentaro jump in to hold him back, even though he's not really doing anything wrong. Subaru tells Waguri that's exactly why she shouldn't hang out with those wild, rude troublemakers. Saku isn't about to let them just walk away and asks Subaru if she forgot what they asked when she showed up. He suggests maybe she's not as sharp as she thinks. To top it off, he points out her hair and says he never thought this school would tolerate something like that, so he guesses they must be more laid back with the rich kids. Waguri gets ready to jump in and defend her friend, but Rentaro beats her to it. He reminds everyone he's not the type to cause drama. He assures them Waguri's the girl from before, and she only came over to apologize for scaring them. There's no secret romance or anything going on. Yorita reminds Usami that actually, he was the one who scared her, and Usami owns up and apologizes for what happened. Waguri also apologizes for the mess she caused and says she's been meaning to say sorry for a while. Subaru tries to shut her down, but Waguri fires back that Subaru owes them an apology too for calling them riffraff, though pride gets the better of her, and she walks off. Saku was supposed to apologize too, but he chickened out and just admits it's his fault for letting them walk all over him. Usami suggests they should hit up a cafe to grab some food and get some studying done. The girls head back to the library, and Waguri tells her friend it's totally fine if she's not into guys, but there's no need to be rude about it. Subaru pipes up, saying she really shouldn't hang out with those wild kids from that school because they only bring trouble. They're jerks, slackers, and just plain annoying. Subaru then thinks about Rentaro and asks Waguri what he's like. Waguri says he's actually a really nice guy, and that she doesn't think the other three are bad people either. That gets Subaru thinking deeply for a second, but then she snaps out of it and tries to offer them a bunch of candy she bought. No luck though, since eating's not allowed in the library. Later that night, Rentaro is still struggling with homework. Even though Saku spent the whole afternoon explaining everything, he can't solve a single problem. Then he gets a message from Waguri asking if she can call him. He says yes, class and she calls right away. Waguri apologizes for how rude her friend was and assures him that despite appearances, she's actually pretty cool. Rentaro laughs and says the same goes for his buddy. He might act like a jerk, but he's a good guy. Waguri gets it based on how she insulted him earlier and also apologizes for making him lie to take the blame for their last encounter. Rentaro tells her not to worry. It was so long ago he barely remembers. Waguri admits that even though she was the one being defended, Rentaro totally stepped up and looked pretty awesome doing it. Rentaro gets a little shy. It's the first time someone said something so nice to him. He goes all awe and almost forgets he's on the phone. She offers to help him study on Saturday and apologizes for talking so formally. Apparently, Japanese people can marry someone but still speak super politely. Rentaro asks why she has to be so formal with him. She explains that he's just a customer at her bakery and talking casual would be kinda rude. Something inside Rentaro breaks. He thought they had something special, but turns out he's just her favorite cafe's regular customer. They agree to meet at a subway station on Saturday. As the call wraps up, Rentaro wonders what Waguri's face looks like right now. They say goodbye and he tells her not to be so formal next time. She replies with a playful, "Deal, shrimp. Consider yourself booked, doll." Rentaro melts in embarrassment while Waguri gets nervous, wondering if he noticed she was grinning like a fool. The day finally arrives. Rintaro's going to meet up with Waguri to study and the guy's practically buzzing with excitement. He even woke up way earlier than usual, like a kid on Christmas morning. He can't believe he's actually spending his day off with Waguri. As he's getting ready, he starts second-guessing everything. Does this shirt look okay? Does it make me look fluffy? You know, the usual brain static that comes with having a crush. He gets to the train station ridiculously early, mostly because his nerves wouldn't let him chill at home. But surprise, Waguri's already there waiting for him. They say hi, and even though they agreed to drop the formalities in the last episode, she still slips into polite mode out of habit. They head to a cafe because, well, the girl eats like she's got a bottomless pit for a stomach. They order something to eat and Rintaro watches in awe as Waguri devours her food with this joy that's honestly kind of contagious. But once the food's gone, it's time to hit the books. Rintaro asks if they can start with math since that's where he struggles the most. Other subjects he can maybe bluff his way through, but with math, they want the process, the receipts. He shows her a problem and she leans in a little too close. They both freeze for a second, caught off guard by the proximity. She starts walking him through the steps, but his brain has completely checked out. He's too busy focusing on the fizzy feeling in his chest that says, "Danger, cute girl within critical distance." Waguri suddenly asks why he's so worried about failing now, and he explains that there's a tournament after the exams. If he flunks, he's benched, and he really wants to play with his friends. He quickly backtracks, feeling like it sounds silly, but Waguri doesn't think so at all. In fact, she says it's sweet how much he cares about his teammates. Rintaro nearly chokes on his drink because, you know, cares is a loaded word and his masculinity isn't exactly built for emotional transparency. Waguri tells him she feels the same about her friends, especially Subaru. Yeah, her name sounds like a car brand and she can come off a little snarky, but they've been close since they were kids. She explains that Subaru's just a little guarded because she's had some rough encounters with guys before. That's why she appreciated how Rintaro didn't jump to judge her. With that heart-to-heart wrapped up, Waguri shifts back into study mode, while Rintaro continues quietly spiraling from all the butterflies in his stomach. He's living the dream. Later that afternoon, they finish up their session, and Rintaro tells her he's never studied this much in his life. Though, if we're being real, once you subtract the lunch break, it was maybe 2 solid hours tops. He walks her back to the station and thanks her for everything. Waguri hands Rintaro a fully loaded notebook. Since she'd already given him the exam topics, she went the extra mile and put together a whole notebook packed with summaries, notes, and practice problems so he could study on his own. Now he's feeling a little guilty, like maybe he's taking advantage of her kindness. Especially since she had to study too, and who knows how many hours she spent putting that thing together. But Waguri tells him not to stress. She really wants him to join the tournament and then tell her how it went. So basically, Rintaro just scored himself a second date. Smooth move, champ. That said, after all she did for him, failing isn't even an option anymore. He'd look like a total slacker. Just as he's about to head home, someone grabs his backpack. Rintaro braces himself, thinking it's probably someone asking for the time, and he's ready to throw down if needed. But nope, it's Subaru and she wants to talk privately. Now when someone in Japan wants a private chat, the classic move is to invite you to a cafe, which explains why there's one on every corner. She does invite him, but honestly, it feels more like she's eyeballing him with a serious look. Rintaro gets nervous. Subaru's kind of intimidating, like when you got sent to the principal's office back in school. The tension's getting almost funny at this point, so Subaru cuts to the chase and asks straight up, "Are you Waguri's boyfriend?" Rintaro nearly jumps out of his skin, like someone just dropped a swear word. And to top it off, he burns himself on his coffee. Subaru kindly offers him a napkin like, you know, to soothe the burn or the shock. He notices she's way friendlier now than the last time they met. She barely seems like the same person. She asks his name, he introduces himself, and she does the same. Guess they're trying to hit the reset button. When Rintaro hears her full last name, he suddenly remembers he's heard it before. The last time Waguri came looking for him at school, her friends warned him he was lucky Subaru wasn't around. Now Rintaro is even more nervous than before. What does this girl have that makes her so intimidating? Subaru asks him again if he's Waguri's boyfriend, and he immediately denies it. Then she confronts him with the real question. What exactly is his relationship with her? Good question, because Rintaro hadn't thought about it. He could say they're friends, but stepping straight into the friend zone is practically shooting himself in the foot. So he decides to say he's just her waiter. Although the funny thing is, he only met her about 4 episodes ago. Subaru replies, "Oh great, but I don't want you to go out with her again. I don't care if this anime ends here, regardless of whether yours truly has to go to work in a factory." Rintaro asks if it's because of Chidori High School, and she bluntly replies yes. He understands that her school is a mess, but explains that it has nothing to do with them. She understands. After that first meeting, she knows Rintaro isn't a bad guy. If he were, he probably would have knocked his teeth out after he badmouthed her and her friend. Subaru even apologizes for it, saying that she's had bad experiences with boys and that seeing her friend with one unnerved her. He explains that the real reason he doesn't want Waguri hanging out with him is because the teachers at her school hate Chidori students even more than they do themselves. And since Waguri is on scholarship, if any teacher sees her hanging around with the wrong crowd, Subaru worries that they'll make life miserable. Sure, we joke about over-the-top anime dramas, but this makes sense. At that moment, a boy in the cafe runs out and falls face first onto the floor. Unlike me, they don't laugh. They run to help him. The boy is fine and tells Subaru he likes his hair color, which touches his heart. This story. As a child, others used to use her like a bowling pin. Sad. They made fun of her hair because, let's be honest, she has silvery green hair. How come scientists aren't studying it yet? Anyway, Waguri showed up to defend her, told her her hair was cool, and took her shopping for food for half a cup of coffee. And that's the whole story. Boring. Maybe, but now we understand why Subaru admires her like a hero. The funniest part? Rintaro already knew that story because Waguri told him, but Subaru insists he only knows what he's been told while she lived. He stood by Waguri's side and witnessed all the effort she put into getting into that fancy school, and he wants to protect her from ruining it all for a waiter she just met. So he asks her to stop seeing Waguri, even if it means hating her, stopping talking to her, or even begging her to stop chasing her. Rintaro thinks about everything, replaying scenes in his head. Though honestly, it seems like they're just entertaining everyone this episode. After his brief mental recap, he shrugs and says, no. She understands, in a way she expected it. After all, they seemed quite happy at the cafe. Rintaro walks off, leaving her alone, and it's obvious he left the money for her coffee, so he didn't even stop by to pay the bill. On the subway, he tries to study, but he can't stop thinking about all the drama surrounding him. He realizes how much Subaru genuinely cares for his friend and wonders if he's ever cared that much for anyone. The train stops and a couple of girls get on, looking for seats. Noticing that the people around them seem uncomfortable, Rintaro gets up so they can sit without feeling cramped. The girls recognize him and thank him. It turns out this isn't the first time he's done this for them. They're the same girls he gave up his seats for in the library. They apologize for not thanking him earlier. He asks them if they studied hard that day, but since he's a little intimidating and nervous, they simply say yes. He tells them it's fine and that's enough for him. His kind, calm response makes them realize they might have misjudged him. Now they think he's pretty cool. To make the rest of the trip more comfortable, Rintaro switches cars. He didn't expect them to thank him. It's a new thing for him. But then he thinks about how Waguri always thanks him for everything. He figures he doesn't want to get her in trouble. When I turned down Subaru, I meant it. She's not going to leave Waguri. But he admits she was right and it's something he needs to think about. Time passes and exam day finally arrives at school. To everyone's surprise, Usami and Rintaro pass. Their grades are pretty bad. Rintaro only got half of them, but it was enough to avoid failure, and that deserves a celebration. The whole class cheers them on. Usami was completely lost during the exam and still has no idea how she passed. And Rintaro is so happy he doesn't even care to admit it. The teacher is almost in tears, proud as a clam. But the real MVP here is Saku. He played the role of tutor, helping them study every day after class. He tries to maintain his cool guy image, but honestly, he blushes just as hard. Rintaro thinks he's never been happier and can't wait to tell Waguri. He takes out his phone to text him, but remembers Subaru's warning. If any teacher finds out, he could be in serious trouble. During the celebration, someone accidentally bumps into Rintaro's desk and knocks over his things. As he was picking it up, he dropped the notebook Waguri had given him, with a sweet note that said, "Go all out, champ." His teammates saw him and asked what was wrong. Hey, if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to type the word exquisite in the comments. Thanks a million and see you in the next video!